Delaney Campbell. I am the founder of the Startup Canada community in the region of Peel. Wanted to say thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a special International Women's Day event for you. Different focuses here. It will be on women in sports. And a special guest, Sedella Marley, will be talking about her foundation, Football is Freedom, and basically discussing how it came to be, and where she is today, where she would like to be. And I'm just really filled with gratitude to have these amazing women that will be joining us today. But before we start, I would like to acknowledge that I am greeting you today from the unceded territories of the Mississaugas. So always here to make sure that we acknowledge those who come before us and those who were settlers and also stewards of the land before. Today, also would like to give thanks for the sponsors of this event, Startup Canada, UPS, Scotiabank, Spark Niagara Innovation Center, Nifty Canada, and Fresh CMS. Thank you for your support. Without you, we would not have this event today. And also our community partners and the participants that are here today. They're giving their time. As I mentioned, Sedella Marley will be interviewed by Jen. We have Simi, Shannon, Marsha-Gaye, Colin, Shayain, and it's just going to be an absolutely incredible afternoon filled with a lot of knowledge, sharing some insights. And one last thing to mention is that we will be creating a fundraising event to support many of these foundations. So stay tuned for that information, as we will be auctioning off items that may be of interest to you. If not, can be a gift for someone else, but really want to contribute back to these foundations, because without them, women in sports would not be able to continue and to excel. So without further ado, I will start off with Jen and her sit-down conversation with Sedella Marley. So please enjoy this afternoon with us. Thank you again for joining us.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Startup Peel's International Women's Day event. We're really excited to spend the next few hours talking about women in sport with you and how a few spectacular women are working to break the bias. Now, before we get into it, we just want to do a land acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and which the region of Peel operates. It's a part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron, Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples. The land that is home to the Métis, and most recently the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to our first inhabitants. We would also like to thank our event sponsors. Of course, we have Startup Canada, UPS, Scotiabank, Fresh Spark, and NFTE, and our event partners, who you can see on our last slide. We're going to kick this event off with an interview that is really near and dear to my heart. I will start by introducing myself. My name is Jennifer Senasie. I'm a journalist. I've been so for more than a decade now. I've operated in news and culture and lifestyle, and this next interview that we're about to watch is just really special to me. I don't know if anyone saw the article in the Wall Street Journal at the end of February. It had to do with the U.S. women's soccer players and the U.S. Soccer Federation. Those two parties reached a $24 million equal pay settlement after players sued for discrimination. So what a way to start off Women's Month. As a part of the deal, the U.S. Soccer Federation committed to an equal rate of pay going forward for U.S. women's and men's teams in friendlies and tournaments, which include the World Cup. But as we know, the pay gap and gender bias issues reach far beyond this instance. So years ago, Grammy Award winning artist and the CEO of the Bob Marley Group of Companies, Sedella Marley, learned about the Jamaican women's soccer team and learned that they were in a little bit of trouble. The Reggae Girls had lost funding for seemingly no reason. So she stepped in, she provided the team with the funding and support they need, and they have been flourishing ever since. I don't know if any of you follow the Reggae Girls, but you should. They are an absolutely incredible team. Her eyes were opened to a much wider issue in the world of sports. So today she's founded the Football is Freedom Initiative, and that's what we spoke about in the interview that we're about to watch. This initiative aims to support female athletes at the grassroots level all the way to the professional level. Now, it's focused on the Caribbean and Latin America, but they're also focused on branching out into the United States and Canada for Caribbean diaspora communities, which I think is really interesting. So I'm really excited to introduce you all to Sedella Marley. We can play the video to find out more about her foundation. Award-winning artist, the author, mom, and the CEO of the Bob Marley Group of Companies, Sedella Marley, is committed to progressing women in sports through her Football is Freedom initiative. The initiative is all about working with grassroots, college, and national teams to give every girl the opportunity to achieve success on the field. Joining me now is Sedella Marley to talk about her journey and introduce us to her project that I know is near and dear to her heart. Hi, Sedella.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing? I can see the sun shining behind you. I have snow outside of my window, so I think maybe you're a little bit happy.
I love snow, so at some time we can switch places. It's all good.
All right. So we are really here today to talk about Football is Freedom. All day today, we're talking about women in sports and breaking the bias. So why don't you introduce us to Football is Freedom?
Football is Freedom allows me to take what we've experienced during our work with the women's program in Jamaica these last 7, almost 8 years, and build on that. I've seen the way that the women's game can literally be an avenue for freedom for these, female footballers. The freedom from social and economic constraints through education and development. There's a lot of potential there, not just as athletes, but as game changers off the field as well. That's what I feel.
When did your passion for football start?
I've always loved football. So in Jamaica, like most of the world, football is a part of our daily life. My dad played, Ziggy and Steve played. And then when I had my sons, they started to play. So I became a soccer mom. So I graduated from being just a cheerleader for daddy and the brothers to being like a full-time soccer mom for my kids. And so it just continued to grow after that.
I think a lot of us, when we think about your dad, we think about him as a lover of football. Talk to me about when you started to get involved with women in football and why you became so passionate about that.
Well, that was kind of by accident. My youngest son came home with a flyer one day, and it was really asking for support for, I think it was called Gifty. It was, I totally forgot what it was, but it was asking for support. And so the first thing I did was I called the federation in Jamaica, and I said, I got this flyer, what's happening? And then they explained to me what was going on with the women's program there. And really that's how it happened. It was a simple phone call, and that kind of changed my life for the last 7 or 8 years. And I'm just continuing to do that because now it's really become a passion for me. I just really want to see women in football succeed on the same level playing field as anyone else, put it that way. And that's why seeing women being treated with less respect and support because of their gender goes against everything my father and mother taught me. So that kind of also gave me that added, I had to do something. I didn't want to be a spectator.
For people who don't know what was going on there, when you got the flyer and you called to find out what was happening, what was happening?
Nothing was happening. I think the program was canceled, lack of funding and resources. And they really just needed someone to write a check, basically. And so before writing a check, I called my brothers actually, Damien and Steve, and I said, we're musicians. The first thing I think I would want to do, I want to do music. Let's do a song that can help to raise funds for the reggae girls. And that's how Strike Hard was born. Yeah, and so, everybody just got involved. My mother's a big supporter. She has this thing where she would go to the camps, and give the girls, she would call it candy money. So she would give them like $20 per girl so they can go and buy candy. So it just became like a real family affair, football. So yeah, we're continuing that. We're continuing and building on that legacy.
I love that she gave them candy money.
Candy money, yeah. She never gave me candy money, but it's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, so Football of Freedom, I can really start to see now that you've kind of unpacked some of your journey for me, how this was born. It launched last year and there was a match between Jamaica and Costa Rica. Tell me about seeing this come to life, seeing Jamaica play Costa Rica. And when I think about it, I can only imagine it as like seeing your child do something for the first time. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me.
No, because I've been with the program for so long. But Football is Freedom is the baby, So yeah, you're right in that aspect, because it was like you dream something and then it happens and you're kind of waiting on something else happening, like whether it's good or bad, you just don't know. But watching Costa Rica and Jamaica, listen, those are two of the most powerful teams in the Caribbean, and I'm not going to say they actually like each other. I don't think the Costa Rican players really like us that much. Yeah, but I like them. Let's tell it. I love you. Both are serious contenders for a spot in the FIFA World Cup next year. So, it made sense to bring them together. Football is Freedom hosted a 1-week training camp for both of the countries though, because COVID, nobody was really training. So that was important. And then it became a friendly match, but not so friendly, but still friendly. But these teams, they have like a real healthy respect and rivalry. Let me not go to that word, rivalry, going back for several years now. I remember the first World Cup I went to was in Costa Rica. I was invited by the then president, Mr. Burrell. And it was just amazing going into that big stadium. The prime minister was there, also female, which I just really loved. But to just see the energy, and it was the under 20s. It wasn't even a senior team, but the stadium was ram-packed. And I was like, wait, a lot of people really love the game. And like every gender, it wasn't like it was male, you had little girls, you had little boys, you had adults. So it was really amazing to see that football just brought everyone together. And that's what I really love about too. It's a unifier of people, but when you see those two teams on the field, it was intense. Both teams played very well. And I think both teams will be something to watch during the Women's CONCACAF tournament this June in Mexico, 2022. Yeah, so we all have to tune in to see what happens.
You talk about the reggae girls losing funding and just the lack of funding and lack of support for women in sports. But I think if we were speaking about this and referring to a men's team, it might be a little bit more shocking to people. But I just feel like we're used to hearing this when it comes to women. What do you think contributes to that? Like, why are women, especially women in the region, losing funding?
I really don't know that answer, because when you do go to any female match. It's packed, you know. It's not like they're playing to empty stadiums. I think they draw the bigger crowds, you know. And I think that's just facts. And so I don't know if it's a mental block, you know, with the people who rule the football world. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, you know, we have to shed a light on it. Yeah. And so it can stop happening. You know, we have great female players. We have, they can, and for me, especially with our girls in Jamaica, football is a way of getting them out of a lot of situations, you know. We get these girls out of Jamaica into clubs, into colleges first. You know, they get their degrees and then they get signed to big clubs. They do their thing. And then at the end of the day, they can go back to Jamaica and contribute back to the country. You know, so it's like football is bigger than just a ball to me and to our Jamaican team, you know, so yeah.
I know there's a focus for you to extend the initiative to regions in the United States and Canada that have a population of people from the region. Why is that important to you to extend up into North America?
Because it has to be done. I mean, I think somebody has to kick the ball.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about how, I know we're talking so much about feelings, but I feel like, you know, this is something that you've been so passionate about and such a supporter of. And that's why we're having you speak today. When you see how far the Reggae Girls have come all these years later, and knowing you got that flyer 7 or 8 years ago, seeing that there was no funding, the team wasn't going to exist. How do you feel? What do you think about?
Well, I mean, the Reggae Girls situation does invoke strong feelings, you know, mixed feelings too, because they have accomplished so much in so little time, you know. So let's think about this. If a men's team in the Caribbean had the same talent and track record, corporate Jamaica would be throwing money at them. Yet our girls, our women, some of whom are also champions at the college and club level, still have to fight for the basic resources that allow them to compete effectively when they come to represent their country. So I have feelings of pride mixed with frustration. You know, yeah, we have to get it together. Seriously.
I see we have a visitor that's joined us. What's the puppy's name?
That's Oscar Marley. Not Oscar Mayer, but Oscar Marley.
Oscar Marley looks like a really good boy. Well, so while Oscar gets settled in there, I need to ask you, when it comes to female teams in the Caribbean and Latin America, what kind of challenges are they facing?
All right, so I think it comes down to this. Both football and the corporate world are largely controlled by men who were taught as little boys that the football field was their exclusive territory. Therefore, even unintentionally, their general mindset is that this is a man's game that they are now being asked to share with the woman. And we kind of know how that goes in kindergarten. You know, kids just don't like to share. So the mindset impacts the core decisions that hinder the development of our game, the women's game. And yes, it comes down to money. Yes, it comes down to support. But really at the root of it, it's this outdated cultural, social mindset that needs to evolve. You know, we need to grow. This is not really his or hers or you versus me. I mean, the field is ours. It's big. And together we can really build something that will empower and uplift not only you and I, but for generations to come. You know, it's like sometimes it's the simple things that we can actually do that can make a big difference. And this is one of them.
Sedella, it's been such a pleasure learning about football as freedom and how it's really empowering women in the region. As you know, today is all about breaking the bias. For anyone who wants to contribute to breaking the bias with you through the Football is Freedom initiative, how can they find more information?
They can find more information on our IG at Football is Freedom Official and in our Football is Freedom app. Now, Jen, as I mentioned before, we're just getting started, but we have more grassroots clinics in the works for the Caribbean and North America, as well as something special for the national team after the qualifiers. So all fingers crossed, toes and everything, that our Reggae girls make it through these qualifiers.
I love when people reveal that there might be a secret in the works with me. So thank you. I look forward to finding out what that secret is.
You're going to be the first to know, actually. As soon as I know, you will know.
Yay! Awesome, Sedella. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing. And I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you, Jen. One love. Football is freedom, y'all.
Hello, everybody. That was so much fun for me to watch back. As I said at the beginning of the interview, I think the Football is Freedom initiative is just what the Caribbean and Latin America needs when it comes to closing the equity gap and the pay gap between female and male athletes. I love what Sedella had to say about football, quite literally getting girls and women out of certain situations and into situations that open up more opportunity for them. So if you would like to support the Football is Freedom initiative, it is brand new, as you just heard from Sedella. You can support by shopping in the Football is Freedom shop. The website is footballisfreedomshop.com. And if you want to stay up to date with everything that this amazing initiative gets up to, you can follow them on Instagram. The handle is Football is Freedom Official. So they are on Instagram. Football is Freedom Official and Football is Freedom Shop.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching that interview with Sedella. As you know, we have a lot of awesome programming coming up next. We have Colin Weston. That was a slick transition. Hey, Colin?
Smooth, very smooth. I like it.
All right, Colin. Well, I'm going to leave you to it to give your chat, and I will gracefully see myself out.
Thank you very much. That was very, very inspiring, what we actually heard there earlier. That was really great to start us off here today. So my name is Colin Weston. I consider Melanie Campbell a very good friend, as you may know, as being the community leader for Startup Peel. I was her equivalent on the West Coast here for 5 years as the co-founder and community leader for Startup Vancouver, which I have moved on from since September. We have an amazing leadership team in place now, very diverse and robust, and they're taking it to the next level. So the other thing I've been doing as an entrepreneur, we have lots of balls in the air, sometimes too many. But my involvement and reason to be in the entrepreneurship space for the last 9 years is relating to sport architecture. And a part of that, getting heavily involved in the $100 billion a year golf industry. And out of that, 5 years ago, I started the Mod Golf podcast, which the tagline for it is I speak to the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the disruptors, and the innovators, the influencers who shape the future of golf. And as that started with technology-led solutions and immersive experiences on and off course, very quickly, I started to get introduced to these amazing people that at a grassroots level were building up not only the recreational side of introducing people to golf, but also, and probably more importantly, giving people opportunity to become vendors and be part of the business of that multi-billion-dollar industry. So very soon, I started to expand the podcast and the stories we were telling to include underrepresented communities, especially with women, LGBTQ communities and people, and Black and Latina golfers and business people and influencers. And that's where it's really taken off. So over the 5 years and 130, episodes, hard to believe it's that long, I've had over 30 amazing, diverse women come on to tell their stories of entrepreneurship in the golf industry. And what we're going to be seeing today is a very good friend of mine who lives in Vancouver also. And I'm not going to say too much about her because you'll see that in the 20-minute video we're about to play here. But Coach Shayain Gustav, she is an amazing human and energizes me. So I'm just going to turn it over to the video now so you can see all the good things that she is doing for women and girls in golf, sport, business, and life. Enjoy. Hey, I'm Colin with the Mod Golf Podcast. So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're collaborating with our good friend, Melanie Campbell, with Startup Canada, and she is the community leader of Startup Peel just outside of Toronto in Brampton, my hometown, even though I'm in Vancouver now. And Melanie has asked me to reach out to my network of amazing women in the sport and golf industry, previous guests that I've had on, and one came to mind immediately, and that is my great friend Shayain, Coach Shayain, as she goes by, and we're celebrating International Women's Day and talk about all the good things that Shayain is doing in sport, in golf, in business, and to provide some inspiration for us today of what she does and why she does it. So let me bring her on. There she is, coming in from beautiful Florida, from Tampa today. Shayain, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing just fine, just fine. We're both enjoying sunny days here in Vancouver, and you in a little warmer for you in Tampa.
Just a little warmer, but yes, it's beautiful.
A little warmer, un poquito. Yeah, un poquito. There we go. There we go. So, hey, let's start off. Let's get right into it here. So everybody watching here through Startup Canada and Startup Peel, and even on the Mod Golf Podcast here, let's pick up where we left off a couple of years ago with our conversation. Well, give us your story. How did you first get into sport? You're in the sports business, so why don't you first tell everybody what you do and why you do it?
So how I got into sport actually is at a very young age. I just loved playing a million different sports. My mom used to always say that I lived in the gym. So in high school, I was a competitive volleyball player during volleyball season. Then I played basketball. I played golf. I played tennis. So whatever sport would come my way, I even tried like rep softball one year. I tried soccer another year. So sport was just, it was me. It was part of me. And I also have two brothers. I'm in the middle of two boys. And coming from a family, an immigrant family that didn't have tons of resources to spend on sports, we would play a lot of sports inside our house and be creative. So we would play volleyball with a balloon. And we had so we were all very competitive, very distinct lines as to what was the net and what was in and out. And you got 3 hits. So we would play like one-on-one. So we did that. We played ping pong or table tennis in our dining room table. Our only thing that my mom said was if she sees one scratch on the table, everything's shut. So we were very careful, but super excited. And we used to use VHS cassettes, which I know some of your listeners would have no idea what VHS is, but we would use VHS cassettes as our net. And then we had obviously a ping pong ball and then rackets that we would play. So it was just part of our childhood. And I think that the thing that I loved the most was even though we didn't have financial resources to always be a part of leagues and teams, as young kids, you're very creative to make fun out of your own things you have in your house. So even through volleyball, playing indoors, playing with the balloon, which took me to competitive volleyball, which took me to, in high school, we were provincial champions. So the journey's been very interesting when it comes to just sport in general. But as you're aware from my previous chat with you is that I was born in Pakistan. So you would usually, the stereotypical vision of a woman from Pakistan would be that she's very conservative, that she doesn't play sports, that she's not allowed maybe to leave the house and play sports and all of that. But actually we had a almost like a country club kind of forum where my whole family would go and we would play every sport. So we learned badminton when I was like 6, swimming. We learned every sport possible in that space and capacity. So I think that's one of the fun things that I always love to share and like break down barriers, that even though you think you're in a Middle Eastern country where women aren't allowed, we actually did have a bit of opportunity to play a bunch of sports.
Nice. So even though you're in Tampa, just so all of our viewers know here, you're not American, you are Canadian, and you're based in Vancouver. That's how we know each other here.
Yes.
You're just out there traveling. So let's move forward here. So how did you get into the business of sport? I believe you also went to school for a sports business program in Florida, did you not?
Yeah, exactly. So in undergrad, I went to school in West Palm Beach where I studied business and sports management. And then I went to the University of Central Florida. It's called the DeVos Sports Business Management Program, and it's a double master's program. So you get your MBA, and then you get a master's in sports business. And I didn't know something like that actually existed. Actually, when I went to undergrad, I didn't even know you could study sports. I was going to become a nutritionist because that was my way of getting towards athletes or teams or sports, was thinking nutrition was a way, until I found out that the school actually had sports management. So I looked at my mom and I said, you can study something you love? Like my mind at like 16 could not understand that someone who's obsessed with sports could study it. So there's a whole like funny story about that. But so yeah, I studied that, went to Central Florida, got a double master's. And then my journey kind of started with working for professional sports teams on the business side of it. So I worked for the Orlando Magic. I worked for the owners of the team and ran all things ownership group and our CEO when it came to hospitality and for their seats. And we also had All-Star game in 2012, which we ran. So when the All-Star happens, the NBA takes over your stadium. And then you have other stadiums in the city that you also host events. So that was really cool to be a part of that and to be part of the logistics of the moving pieces of that. That was a lot of work, but a really good time. And then from there, I went to Arsenal in London in the UK, and similar concept in the sense of it was premium hospitality, where I was in charge of a private members club, almost like a country club, but within a football stadium. So you paid a certain fee to become a member, and then you paid yearly to renew your seats. And that was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had. I had people from all over the world that were really wealthy in one space that I was in charge of, and they were all super successful. And from time to time, I had to be very diplomatic, as well as find a way to tell them that no, they could not have 15 tickets to the finals of a game, and your allotment's only 4. And, you know, and they always received everything in life. So who is this little girl telling me that I can't have that? And I'll go, you know, higher up, and they would try and they would come back to me. So you learn a lot as you move from country to country and from different sporting teams as well. You learn a lot about yourself along with people. And one of my favorite things to tell people is that nobody ever teaches you in school as to how to greet somebody. But when I worked for Arsenal, I had to learn very fast, how do you greet lords and ladies? How many kisses do people from Switzerland and Belgium? They usually do kisses. Some people from England do 1 kiss. In North America, we do a handshake. So at first, when everyone was coming in for kisses, I was like, what is going on? They're like in my personal space, but that was very natural and normal to them. So you very fast learn the greeting is the first thing, and depends what country you're from is very different. So something as simple as that is something you can learn if you work for a sports team in England.
There we go. I'm sure it's different during these COVID times a little bit.
Oh yes,
sure that's completely changed again. So let's. So we don't want to spend a couple of minutes here with you. We don't want to take up too much of your time here today, but let's really get into it. As far as your journey then between what you've done with the Orlando Magic and then with Arsenal, and then you've come back into golf, of course, as a PGA, I believe a Class A professional. Maybe you can tell us what your classification is.
I'm actually an LPGA Class A professional, so ladies professional golf. There's a professional section as part of it, which is where the teachers are. So I'm part of that organization. So I just got my Class A, which is the last level, which I'm very excited about.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So I'm super excited for that. So the journey on that became, how that started was I moved back to Vancouver after Arsenal, started my own business. And then I was like, what am I going to do now? I've worked for all these sports teams. So I became a consultant for some time. And then the lady who taught me how to play golf said, come help me in my academy. And I rolled my eyes and I'm like, I don't want to teach golf. Like, that's not a thing. But I never saw myself in that position. Long story after that. And then all of a sudden, here I am getting my LPGA certification to teach golf. And the reason for that was because I never really took a step back and thought about it. When I worked for the Orlando Magic, when I worked for Arsenal, I was constantly taking either clients out to play golf and or playing in golf charity tournaments because I played the game. If I never played the game, I would always be left out of the conversation and I would never be able to insert myself in these positions to meet very high level executives. So I then realized very fast that this sport gave me access and gave me the tools to hold my own out there. And I was always one of the only women that played. So I wanted to change the narrative. And that's why I joined the LPGA. And that's why I became a golf pro, to give more women in my demographic and age group of 21 to 45 years old, to teach them, you don't have to love the game. You don't have to watch golf every weekend. You just have to know the basic golf fundamentals and a few golf etiquette to like be on the golf course, to be able to conduct business, to network, to meet new people. And that, when you were asking me, like, where are you now? I am now building essentially a program to help women and minorities learn how do you do golf. How do you do business on the golf course? What does that look like? When do you talk about business? How do you network? How do I find my new employer on the golf course? Because all of my jobs I have received through networking, through meeting people, through having conversation. And golf, as you're aware, is the biggest connector of people from all walks of life.
I agree.
Don't play it. If you don't play the game, you never have a chance. You never have access to meeting those people. But if you know a little bit and you can hold your own, then you will give yourself the opportunity to meet all kinds of people. So now I've become very passionate. I'm going to create a program on that.
So, and you are, and between your YouTube channel and your Instagram, and we'll leave below links to all that so they can check out all the great work that Coach Shayain has done and continues to do in that realm. And you juggle a lot of balls in the air and make me look like a slacker. I don't know how you do it, but you do. But let's finish up with a couple of these questions here. So once again, to bring it all back to celebrating International Women's Day and empowering women and celebrating women out there that have never picked up a golf club before. I know you're a great advocate and ambassador for Women's Golf Day, which happens the first Tuesday of June every year. We participated in your event that you held at Mylora Golf Course, just outside of Vancouver and Richmond. Can you perhaps make some suggestions for women, build on what you said already, to encourage them to come out to realize it's not such a great social tool, but really as a business tool. It's not an old boys club anymore. It's a multi-billion-dollar business opportunity, and women need to get in there.
Absolutely. The biggest advice I can give is don't try and go alone to the driving range. If you're trying to learn the game for the first time, take a friend. It's always less intimidating if you have a partner in crime or someone that you can just like, are we in the right place? Are we doing the right thing? If you try the sport by yourself, it's all the intimidating factors come into play. So my suggestion would be take a friend. Some people like to go with their significant others when they're like first learning, because most times in a traditional relationship with a man and a woman, you would have usually their boyfriends or husbands or someone's playing and they're like, you know what, let me learn this game now because they're always gone every Saturday or gone every Sunday. That's currently the theme with my group of friends that I hear a lot. So now all of my friends are coming to me and being like, how do I learn this game to spend some time with my husband? So it doesn't always have to be that case. But my suggestion always is take a friend. Take a friend to the driving range. I know in Vancouver we don't have Top Golf, but Top Golf in the US or Drive Shack is a wonderful way to experience the game in a really fun, exciting environment as well. It's not serious. There's food, there's drinks, there's music. It's just a great hangout on a Friday, Saturday evening that you can do, which also encourages people to try swinging. And as you know, it's that one shot up in the sky that gets people coming back over and over again. You can miss 50, but it's that one that you hit here and you're like, I can do this. So that's what I would say that I would encourage people to take a friend.
Love that. Love that. And you're, of course, in Tampa right now. You're going to be back here in a month or so, hopefully to spend some time with some summer weather here in Vancouver. I believe you also have a platform to encourage women to come out and learn the game as Coach Shayain. So to everybody out there, if they're in the greater Vancouver area, how can they connect with you to perhaps take a lesson in a group setting that's comfortable, fun, not intimidating, welcoming, all the great things that you do to encourage people to take that first swing?
For sure. So I usually teach at my Laura, which is an executive golf course. So executive golf course, all it means is that it's just smaller and like less intimidating for people who are first learning out. And they've been very, very kind to me throughout my whole journey of teaching. So I always love to take people there and encourage them to hang out and eat and hang out with me over there. But if you have any questions as to how you get into it or how, like, people have tons of questions when they first message me. I'm sure in your notes below, you have either my Instagram or an email, and I'm more than happy to answer anyone's questions. The hardest thing is to show up. That was the hardest thing. I had a lady who tried backing out 4 times because she tried to convince me she didn't have the right clothes for golf. And I kept telling her, you just need to show up. All you need to do is just don't wear jeans. That's the only thing. You can wear yoga pants, athletic, whatever you want. Just don't wear jeans, and everything else I'll take care of. I can provide the balls, the clubs, whatever you need. So the hardest thing is just showing up. And now she comes to me every week for lessons.
Wonderful. Love that story. Love that story. So let's finish up with one last thing for everybody watching, especially women here today. If they love sport like you always have all of your life, you know, with the ping pong table on your mom's dining room table there. I love that story. Any suggestions you can give for them of where to start? Any resources in Canada or even anywhere for them, or strategies for them to take that first step if they're considering, I love sport. Maybe they didn't know like you know now, or didn't know before that, hey, I can actually go to school for this. I can actually make a career out of this. So what could be that first step for them to build some confidence and perhaps meet some people that can help them along to start that journey?
Sure. So a couple of things come straight to mind. Now with social media, we're so lucky for there's so many resources out there in social media. My first thing goes to Facebook groups. If you don't know much about, let's say you wanted to join a golf group or wanted to know more about golf, there's tons of Facebook groups out there for women's groups and or just golf in general. So I would look into that. If you are a young person trying to get into university or college, in the sports world, or just even like any kind of sports, I would highly recommend looking into LinkedIn. LinkedIn, shockingly, I get tons of people reaching out to me when they're in LinkedIn asking me how do they get into golf and or how do they go and get a master's in sports. I'm usually leaving voice notes back or replying back to them, letting them know. I find LinkedIn is underused by a lot of young people. So those would be my 2, because I know social media right now is like the thing, or social platforms is where people reach out to the most. And after that, you eventually find a mentor, someone that's done it, and you'll be surprised how many people are actually out there willing to help you. I think that the hardest step is the first step. Send that email or the text. It happens to me as well. But sometimes I just say, here goes, and I press send. And everyone on the other end has been in that position at some point in their life, and someone has helped them out or made that connection for them. So my biggest thing is I always pay it forward. If young people come to me, I'm always trying my best to put them in contact or in connection with somebody else, because I was there and I still am there sometimes. I'm always refreshing, restarting different careers and looking for that person that's going to give me that insight or that connection to somebody else.
Love it. Love it. Very inspiring stuff here today. So to finish up, we'll give you the last word. What do you want to say to everybody out there, especially all the women around the world on International Women's Day?
I would love to say that we are a strong body of people, women, and we are a lot stronger than we think that we are. And in times when you're feeling really low, or you don't have motivation or the confidence in yourself about yourself, don't be hard. Be kind to yourself. Everyone is going through their own journey, and as confident as somebody like Michelle Obama or Oprah or just whoever you look up to as inspiration may look to you, they have really bad days as well. They have self-doubt as well. So I am constantly working on being kinder to myself every day. So I say that right back to you. Be kind to yourself.
Be kind and generous to yourself is something I've actually got a sticky right above me here that says exactly that. Be kind and generous to yourself, because we need to do that on a daily basis.
Yes, it's
That's
hard.
Great. Shayain, aka Coach Shayain, it's been so good to see you again. I can't wait to see you in person in a couple of weeks. I look forward to that. Are you going to be hosting a women's golf day event this year again? Is that going to happen, or what are your thoughts?
The goal is to have another one this year as well. The current problem is not problem, but I'm just traveling a lot right now. So the fun thing, speaking about Women's Golf Days, I'm actually here in Tampa because we're hosting a golf clinic for a group called Women of Color in Pharma. That's based out of the US, and they wanted about 6 to 8 minority golf coaches. So I was very lucky that they asked me to be a part of it. So I'm really excited. That happens tomorrow. So there's been tons of really cool women's groups and just groups in general that are, finding some of the minority coaches to bring us out to showcase, because as we know, representation does matter. So I'm excited about that. So that's why I'm here. And then since I passed my Class A, I'll be going to the Masters.
Wow.
So
very jealous.
So excited about that. I got one ticket for myself being an LPGA pro. So I'll be going to that in April, and then I'll be back. So fingers crossed, I'll have more of my schedule kind of in the summer months together when I'm back home. But yeah, so feel free to email and or find me on Instagram and DM me if anybody wants more information as to where I'll be.
There we go. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Happy International Women's Day to you and to everybody out there.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
Hello, welcome back. So we're just waiting here for a moment to get some other people on. As entrepreneurs, we're always scrambling, we're always pivoting. We had another guest that was going to be joining us, but because of time overruns, that hasn't quite happened. So we just figured it out on the fly, and here we are. All right. So, like I said, since we're improvising a little bit here, I don't know if I'm the one that's leading this. I'd much prefer, of course, if one of you two fabulous women would kind of take the reins here. But my understanding is we're going to have just a conversation of all the good things that the two of you are doing in the sport space. So I've just got a note here from Aldine that apparently I am leading this. So so there we go. So we'll just go. So why don't we actually start, Marsha? Since you're not muted, why don't you start telling us what you do and why you do it?
Awesome. So thanks so much, Colin. So my name is Marsha-Gaye, and I'm a partnership marketing manager at CBC Sports and Olympics. We can get into what that means later on. Right now, it could sound like a bunch of words, a number of different people. So happy to clarify that a bit more. I'm also the founder of Black in Sport Business, which is an organization that aims to connect Black professionals in sport, business specifically, across Canada, and a part-time professor at a couple of colleges and universities in Toronto.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for the intro there.
Okay.
Simi, how about yourself there? Can you tell us what you're doing with Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment, I believe? While we wait for Simi to come back and join us, Marsha, why don't we continue with you? Let's talk about your journey. Whenever I have conversations with amazing women in sport and business, it's always, how did you start? And how did you get into it? And one of the things I've learned, especially having over 30 women and growing on the Mod Golf podcast to tell their story and share their truth. And I've heard this, and it's this saying that in order to be one, you need to see one. So who encouraged you? Who did you see as a mentor or someone that encouraged you to get the confidence to realize this is a path that I can take? So why don't you share with that as far as the early days for you to get to where you are now?
That's such a fun question. I've never been asked that before. So let's tackle that for sure. So I grew up in Jamaica. So seeing Cedella today on the program was really, really great for me because you know about her growing up and stuff and her family and all the great work that they have done. So I grew up in Jamaica running track and field, which is Jamaica's like one of major exports, right? Because, you know, we do really good at that every once in a while. So I ran track and field. I got a full scholarship to school in the US where I did track and field there for 4 years. I coached for a year and then moved to Canada right after that. So that was my real raw deal in sports. I was in sport from a child coming all the way up into adulthood. And I decided that, you know, I want to make this my life's mission. So I decided to try and do law school and merge my passions and my parents' desires of being a sports attorney. Interned at law firms, absolutely hated it. Realized that it's not my path in terms of that, but I still fundamentally want to be in the world of sport. So I went back to school. Enrolled in a program at George Brown called Sport and Event Marketing. And that's when understanding more about the business side of sport, because things have to happen. How do these events come about? How do these jerseys get on your back? How do these, you know, there's so many questions that you think or you take for granted when it comes to sport. So understanding more about the industry and how these things happen really piqued my interest there. So I started working in the industry. Subsequently, after graduation, worked for about 5-6 years. And then I went into an area of the industry that didn't really have a very favorable response for me. So I went to work for a major league in Toronto, and it was horrible, an experience for me. And so I decided at that point, I'm either going to quit sport altogether or try this one more time. So I moved to Greece for a year to do a master's in Olympic studies and came back and tried it again. And here I am at CBC Sports and Olympics, in a better spot, doing way more and focusing on the things that I like, which is brand, events, and sports all merged together.
Wow, amazing. So let's expand on that. Tell us a little more about your work at the CBC and specifically, of course, with the Olympics. Tell us about perhaps what you've done. Were you involved with Beijing and beyond that? So tell us a little more about the work that you're doing there. This sounds fascinating.
Oh, sure. So first of all, I'm just getting over my Beijing hangover because it's been 17 days of rock star moments, which is great. So Team Canada did really well, which is good for us. So working at CBC, what specifically me and my team does, we work with corporate partners. So if you were able to watch any of the broadcasts, which I hope people did, during those 17 days, you see partnerships with like Sobeys and Bell and Lululemon and all these other brands that partner. So we work to make sure we tell their brand stories authentically throughout the broadcast as it relates to the Olympics. So we work with their brand teams and our production teams to work together to build out stories and content that really works well with the games for those 17 days and make it like really poignant. So whether it is commercials, whether it is actual features, whether it is digital social, we have all these different touch points that we work with to kind of like make sure that the brand weaves themselves in authentically and everybody knows what they're doing and how they're supporting athletes and Team Canada in general.
Love it. Love it. So love to hear about the initiatives CBC is putting in place to level the playing field, to break the bias.
Yes.
Love to hear that because I know that with TSN, we look at that as a competition, but and I'm a big Raptors fan, grew up in Toronto,
yes.
But even though I'm in Vancouver because we lost the Grizzlies. Oh, well, too bad.
That's okay. We might get something back. I'm hopeful.
There you go. But I love what TSN has been doing over the last couple of years, and now with their Raptors reporting team, that they've got an all-woman team. Not every night, but they have that. And some of the women are really getting prominent positions rather than just on the sidelines talking every couple of minutes, that they are moving up into leadership positions and full broadcast positions. So can you tell us about the culture at CBC? And hopefully it's as progressive and as inclusive. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
There.
CBC has been working on this for a very long time, actually, Colin, where we've worked really hard on gender equity and making sure that women are prominent, not only on the broadcast in front of the camera, behind the camera, but also ensuring that our content is leveled. So last year, because the years are a blur now, so between 2020 and 2021, CBC had mandated that we will always ensure that our content is equal on all channels, whether it's TV, linear, or digital social. We're going to ensure that all of our content shows equal amounts of women content as men content. So that's a commitment that we have really done really well on, especially in surge of like women doing well in soccer and women doing well in hockey and being able to bring home Team Canada wins in really big ways, but highlighting the fact that women athletes are just as great and do great things like male athletes do and telling their stories. So audiences all over can understand that women need your attention, and women in media, because it's always a question of the chicken or the egg, right? Do you show it so you can build the audience, or does the audience have to be there so you can show it? So that's always the question, and we've taken the position that we'll just show it, and we'll definitely build the audience from there, and that's where we kind of put our stake in the ground and made that commitment to ensure that we always have women represented on our media platforms in all aspects.
Love that. I'm happy to hear that we're still not there where we need to be. Women make up 51% of the world's population. It's certainly not equitable yet in funding for startups. It's part of that world, and it's getting better, but it's still woefully low, and representation also across the board in every single industry, in every single sector, which is why I want to ask you more about Black in sports business. Tell us about that. How does that all fold in and dovetail with the work that you're doing with CBC and the Olympics? So tell us a little more about what you're doing with your business.
Sure. It was interesting because in the stillness of 2020, Black in sport business was really formed, in the sense where, as a Black professional in the sport business world, you always felt like you're the only one. And you always walk around looking for other Black professionals. You're like, oh, what? Are you there? So I thought it was important for us to build a community of professionals, which Simi is also a part of, by the way, right. That we would know each other, get to know each other, build a community, and be able to help each other moving forward. So my thing is, if I had that community when I had my negative experience in the industry, it would have made a difference in how I handled it and how I felt supported. So I wanted to make sure that if anybody else ever felt that way, they'd have a community that they could lean on. So I created the community that I didn't have when I was dealing with my experiences.
Got it. So based on your own experiences and those pain points and kind of missed opportunities, or not even missed opportunities that weren't even there, even though they should have been at the time, are you raising awareness for both men and women of color that are, let's say, athletes that are at your level? So you're kind of that persona of who you're trying to attract as they transition into their next career, and seeing there's opportunities in business and in media in sports. Is that a good piece of who you're looking to attract and help?
So basically, I don't even discriminate if you're an athlete or not. So there are so many people who work in the sport world that probably they did recreational sports growing up, or they did sports when they were young, but you don't necessarily have to be an athlete and make that step over, which is one of the things that we want to raise awareness on. Being a Black professional in sport business means that you have a passion for whatever we're doing here. And there's no real hardcore prerequisites. You just have to be good at your job, be passionate about it, and want to make a difference a positive difference in the space. So what we're trying to do is educate people, and educate young people, especially who are coming in the industry, about the different ways that they can engage. It's no longer, a lot of people have the misconception that, okay, so as an athlete, now I'm going to go work behind the camera and do like journalism or on beat. There are other things you can do. There's front office, there's sponsorship, there's digital, there's social, there are all these different components, and our job is to kind of raise awareness to these various areas and show them representation, that Black people are in these spaces doing great things at different levels, and that you can see that representation there, so you feel encouraged to go for it. I think it's so important that you see yourselves, and to go back to your original question too, Colin, like I never really saw myself in these spots, because I find that Black women in these spaces are very diminished. So not having that representation for me was just like, well, let me just push and see how far I can get. So now I'm just encouraging other Black women who want to be in the space to validate that, hey, I am here, you can be here as well.
Got it. So who has, over the years or even recently, who has inspired you, or who has helped you, who has mentored you over the years? Who has inspired you?
You know, that's a fun question. I have had, I was actually talking about it this morning too, and since 2020, it has been such a shift in, now that everybody had this, let's call it, for lack of a better word, this awakening in terms of like social justice and equity. The people I have met in the last few years, the last 2 years, have poured more into me professionally than the people I've met in the last 8. Having that community of professionals who are just as passionate about equity and sport as you are, you're like, where have you been all my life? It's been so refreshing. So having them be present, having them be accessible, and having them cheer for you and support you and sponsor you and put you in spaces where you never normally would be, has been tremendous over the last 2 years. And they've given me opportunities that I would never have had. So if anything, I can't pinpoint 1 or 2 people. It's more like a community.
Right. Right. And speaking about community building, if there are people watching out there today that would love to learn more about Black in business for women, especially, how can they connect with you to start a conversation?
Sure. I mean, let's start from the top. I'm always on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the first way. My name is Marsha-Gaye Knight, as listed here. Black in Sport Business has a website. We also have Instagram. So if you prefer to connect with me on the social channels, please feel free. Black in BSB or Black in Sport Business also has LinkedIn. So feel free to touch bases there. And then we have an email address that's listed on our website. If you want to send a note, please feel free. So I'm pretty accessible on these different channels, whether it's LinkedIn or social. So please feel free to drop a line anytime if you have questions or just want to ask me anything about the sport world and what my position is in there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So you're in the GTA. You're in Toronto,
yes,
right?
I'm in GTA.
So are you finding the majority of your community is in the GTA, or are you managing to reach all across Canada and even beyond our borders right now? To tell us about your demographic a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Valid question. A lot of it is concentrated in the GTA, naturally, because a lot of the popular sports and the sport administration are mostly built in Ontario. But we do have membership in Calgary as well as Vancouver. So we're trying to reach out a bit more and expand our reach. I'm trying to get somebody out east. I haven't had anybody out east just yet, but we definitely want to make sure it's a Canada thing and not just selfishly, not like the GTA Ontario thing, and reach as far as we can just to have that visibility and build that community across the board. Got
it. So as we know, I consider you a startup, even though it may not be tech enabled here, it's more community building and what you're offering as a service and value. How do you scale? And scale is, you can't do everything yourself. So as far as partnerships, what organizations are you partnering with across the country that's helping to propel you forward?
Oh, yes. So I partner with the Canadian Black Standard, which is a group of great women who have put together this initiative to help Black women in marketing. So I've partnered with them. I've partnered with BTI, which is Black Talent Initiative, that helps Black talent people find talented work in the community. So that's another one. I've also partnered with Onyx Initiative, which is another job sourcing, initiative for Black students who are looking to transition into different career fields. And there's the Black is Me collection. There's so many different smaller group pockets that we work with just to make sure that we keep each other accountable and keep each other going. And there's also Black Lives Rising that works on a bunch of different key messaging to support the Black community.
Wonderful. So with regards to sport, there's so many sports that are growing out there, especially on the women's side, whether it's football, aka soccer for most of the world, tennis, and golf, where we had Coach Shayain talking about her journey, of course, of not even really being involved in golf. And now she's an LPGA Class A professional. Can you imagine? Her platform being to welcome women and girls to the game of golf and seeing the business tool of that. So I'm curious to hear what I call them verticals or what sports sectors are you finding most frothy right now, or that you're supporting the most to grow, especially on the women's side.
On the women's side. So funnily enough, I just started golf last year. So I actually got my first set of clubs and I'm very ready to go out again next season. But I need to brush up and get my muscle memory back. But golf is a sport that I think has so much legs. As Shayain was mentioning, in terms of the different avenues, it comes off very intimidating to get in, and especially when it comes to accessibility and resources. So that is definitely something that we have to try and make it a little bit more accessible and provide options for people who have a genuine interest in it. But golf is something I think which is great for relationship building, community building, and getting women to feel comfortable doing more sports stuff. I think some of the other sports can be intimidating, especially for women. Do I have to go bounce a ball? Do I have to go do these other things? But I think golf is something that can be recreational. It can be fun, and you can make it what you want to make it. If you want to make it more social, if you want to make it more competitive, it's really up to your pace, how you want to do it. So that's something I'm learning more about the golf space as well. Other sports, with the surge of the interest in soccer, I just love to see the from grassroots all the way up to professional, the different ways in people are infusing into soccer and wrapping their arms around it, with Canada men and women both doing well for the first time simultaneously. This is like creating an insurgent. So I'm very excited to see as we build up to World Cup 2026, where that leads us from a women perspective, not only on the field or anywhere else, but also behind closed doors, in offices, in senior positions, and making those decisions when it comes to like global sport in that facet. So those two sports are kind of on my radar right now.
Got it. Well, with golf, since we just met, first thing I'm going to do, like you said, I'm going to connect with you on LinkedIn right after we finish up here.
Jeez.
And I know quite a few people at Golf Canada, which are based just down the street of you. They're based in Oakville, so they're in the GTA also. And they have all kinds of programs that might align and mesh very nicely with what you're doing. So if you'd like,
I love that.
I'd be more than happy to make some introductions there for you.
Oh, yeah, we'd definitely love that. Thank you. I appreciate that kind of support.
At least not on camera. That would be like you're just rejected.
No, we can do it in the background. That's totally fine. Totally fine.
Right. That's right. So I know we were waiting for Simi to come on here also. I'm just reading that apparently she's in the wrong waiting room, or there's some technical challenges here. So I'm not quite sure where we're going to go from here. But while we wait to see if Simi's going to come on, if she doesn't, then we'll just end right now, and I'll hand it back over to Aldine to take it to the next step here today. But why don't you just finish up and let us know or any more words of encouragement or inspiration you can give, especially for women out there today that are looking, kind of the same question I asked Shayain, that for them to start their journey, if they don't know where to go, or they don't have the confidence, or they don't even know what opportunities are out there, what can you provide?
I always tell people that confidence is a muscle that you have to exercise, right? You don't naturally just get it. You have to do things that make you feel confident enough to do it again. So even if you just start, give yourself the chance to just start. And you never know, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever the results are, it shouldn't stop you from doing it again. Right? So definitely encourage women, because sometimes it can be hard to overcome different barriers, whether it's economic, systemic, sexist barriers, whatever they might be. But just give yourself the chance to take that one step, and then from there continue to build the confidence on it. Because if we don't use that muscle of confidence, because we need it, because a lot of people you see walking around here, they've gone through a lot of things for them to build that confidence. So you have to take your steps and do what you got to do to make sure that when you're ready, your confidence is built too.
So good. Wonderful nuggets of wisdom there. And thank you for sharing your story today, Marsha. It's been a pleasure getting to know you as spontaneously as this happened.
I know.
I had the opportunity. And I'm sure you and I will be talking on LinkedIn and maybe even in real life very soon. So thanks for joining us.
I love that. This real life thing is coming back. I love it.
Right? It's
yes,
like
finally.
It's like we've been built for this thing for, I don't know, tens of thousands of years as humans.
Just a few centuries, and I'm happy for the comeback. I'm here for it.
Absolutely. Well, next time I'm in Toronto, who knows? Maybe we'll meet up there, because I'll be back there.
Keep me posted. I love that.
That'd be wonderful. Maybe with Melanie at the same time. That would be great.
There we go. Why not?
Okay, well, why don't we finish up there? I'm not sure if Simi's going to be joining us. I still think there's some technical issues with that. So, Aldine, why don't I hand it back over to you? Once again, Marsha, pleasure to know you, or pleasure to meet you today, I should say.
Likewise,
so I don't have a script here, so I'm just freestyling.
Going on
get all my words wrong. And I see Simi is here.
Wow, finally made it.
Just stay centered. We just stay calm.
I'm here.
There we go.
I'm calm. I'm here.
Just got to namaste this thing, and we're all good, right? There we go. There we go. Center your chakras, and away we go. So, Simi, tell us all the good work you do. I see there between, you've got with Toronto FC behind you there. So with Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment, why don't you start by telling us what you do over there?
My formal title is Coordinator of Club Administration. So essentially I work in the operations department. I'm really hands-on with the academy. I would say 90% academy, 10% first team at this point in the year. So essentially it's helping with their programming, their planning, helping with building for any players that are coming from out of town, helping them find places, accommodations to stay in the city, providing them with as much as they need so that they're successful on the field, but also off the field in terms of in school, their personal lives, and whatnot. But in short, it's a lot of admin. Gotcha.
And how long have you been with Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment for?
So formally in this role, it'll be a year in July. But if we're going back, which is a longer story, I've been affiliated with MLSE since 2014 in different roles and different capacities. It's been a year that I've been full-time.
Gotcha. Well, we do want to go back in time here, because this is what I'm really interested in. I'm always curious to hear that backstory, the challenges, and maybe even the disappointments or frustrations, and, you know, get as real as you want to get here. Did you find back in 2014, I consider where we are now and all the good things that Marsha's doing and others are doing, that it's slowly, not an equal playing field yet, but definitely better than it was. What challenges did you face at that time when you were looking to join on with Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely say that some challenges are essentially just the availability of certain roles and certain jobs, and things are constantly changing. So I am really fortunate enough and blessed I was able to get this role in the midst of a pandemic. But ideally, when I wanted this role, it wasn't available, which was a disappointment at the time, but definitely not a discouragement in terms of my career goals. You know, like, things don't always work out in our timing. So in my case, when I graduated from university, I'd of course wanted to come full time on board, because beforehand, from 2014 up until 2019, I was always part time because I was a full time student. So now I was like, okay, I'm ready to go full force, join the industry full time. What do you guys have for me? There was nothing available in the department that I wanted to be in within TFC, which is where I really wanted to be. So essentially, I just had to take some time, keep all my doors open, not put all my eggs in one basket, and continue to network, continue to do what I could do on my own end to learn about the industry, to stay connected to folks here, so that if an opportunity came about, that they'd be able to think of me. I did take a job, which I would for a piece of advice, you know, if it's not something that you want, if it's not an industry that you want, but if your heart's not in it, I would definitely suggest not putting yourself in a position where you're unhappy with your job, essentially. So I did that, and then I ended up doing a post-grad in sports and event marketing. So as Marsha mentioned earlier, I actually met Marsha after the program, but she's currently teaching in that program, which is so funny. So I did that post-grad certificate after I graduated, which sort of also opened the door for me to get into this current role that I'm in now.
Got it. So now I understand your educational background is in sport marketing, sport business. So what drew you to that in the first place? We heard when I had a video with Shayain talking about how she fell into it and said, I didn't even know this existed, this thing that I consider awesome. You can have a career in that. People will pay you money for that. How, even in high school, if you kind of go back a little bit further, were you a competitive athlete or just enjoyed? So tell us a little more about your backstory that led up to going to school.
Yeah, for sure. So I also had that similar realization. There was an epiphany moment, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can get paid to do this. I think I might have to make a switch in terms of my career, because I did my undergrad at Ryerson in retail management and minored in public relations. But to go back, I grew up playing soccer. I played competitive for about 10 years, up until grade 11, grade 12. My younger brother also played competitive, so he's still playing. He's actually playing at Providence College right now, but he grew up playing for TFC. So hence why I was always at the training ground, always at the facility, always around the crowd. And then my mom actually bumped into one of the executives back when I was in high school and was like, Simi needs her high school hours. What can she do? We're here every weekend. And then they just had me doing some small tasks and little running arounds on the weekends with their senior academy at the time, which is now TFC2. And I loved it. Grew up playing soccer. My first job was as a referee when I was in grade 9. So it wasn't a job to me. It was sort of just a hobby. It was what I liked to do for fun, to work in sports. Fast forward to grade 12. I'm still unaware that you could actually have a career in sports besides coaching. I know I don't want to coach. I've also made the decision that I'm not going to play anymore. So I went to Ryerson for retail management, thinking I'm going to be in business. I'm going to be a retail buyer. In my second year, had the realization, I hate this. I'm not going to switch my degree, but this is not for me. So I sort of pivoted my extracurricular activities and my networking to fit the environment that I wanted to be in, so in sports. So joined the Ryerson Sports and Business Association, took up a position as the athletic commissioner for the school. And then in second year, I also got a job with the Ryerson Rams in their team operations department, which is at the Mattamy Athletic Center. So I just did that for fun. Met some great people, wanted to put myself in a space of people that I would love to work with in the future. And then my second year in that job, which was my third year, was when I was like, oh my gosh, I can make real money if I stay in this environment. I can get paid to do this. Fortunate enough, I was lucky enough to bump into a number of people within the sports industry who were frequenting Mattamy Athletic Center. So I was able to connect with them and just figure out what they were doing. At the time, I was still doing like seasonal jobs with TFC. So I became a ticket coordinator for 2.5 seasons, 2 seasons and 1 game, because the 3rd season was when COVID happened. But just having little odd jobs like that, being in those spaces sort of made me think like, oh my gosh, there is such a broad spectrum of opportunities out there, and that I don't have to limit myself to what I see, and that the world is my oyster. I just have to connect with the right people and see what other people are doing to know what I want.
Great insights there, and great inspiring thoughts that you just shared there. So the couple things you mentioned there, you did talk about that you just volunteered for the fun of it and just to explore that. And then that networking, that authentic networking opportunity, it's more relationship building than networking. Some people, have that connotation that it's all in it for you, but that give first mindset that you have and to give back. And my understanding now is what you've learned, the value of that you're also involved with your own volunteer foundation. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
So this is definitely not sport related, more on the community side, but my friends and I co-founded Youth for Toronto this is about to be our 2nd year. Wow, time flies. 2 years ago in the summer, in the midst of COVID, and we just noticed there was definitely a gap in terms of how some of the lower income communities within the city were being supported, especially in the midst of the pandemic. So we're definitely privileged enough not to experience, all the things that they're experiencing, but simple things like food donations, commuting, and if you just think like one household might have 4 kids and they're not all being schooled at home, having to now go from only providing dinner for your 4 kids to providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks because kids eat a lot is definitely like, a lot to take on if you're a parent, a single parent, and you also have your own job on the side. So we were just able to find those little gaps in the community and do what we could to support those, thanks to the support of people within our networks and honestly complete strangers as well. So we essentially support lower income communities within the Toronto area with food donations. In the summer, we like to have community barbecues. And then in the winter, it's just a lot of youth-centered programming. So mentoring, webinars, helping them apply for college, helping them access grants, and, just being the support that, we would have liked to have when we were younger growing up.
Yeah. Are you looking for volunteers currently to round out your team or expand your team?
Yes, for sure. So right now in the winter, it's more of a virtual type of programming, but in the summer, we're always open to having volunteers. So feel free to message me on LinkedIn. It's my name here, Simi Olatunji, and we'll definitely be able to keep you in mind for our community barbecues, which we do about 2 to 3 per summer in different locations within the city. And we always love to have an extra helping hand.
Wonderful. Well, once again, everybody watching here today, you can learn more about Simi by, once again, going to LinkedIn. This is Marsha had mentioned also, and also Shayain very emphatically and almost surprisingly found out that's a great place to be, to meet people for authentic, engaging relationship building opportunities there. And I found that over the last couple of years too with LinkedIn, where before it was kind of the butt of jokes on sitcoms before that you're on there because you couldn't get a job or whatever. But the last 5 years, I find it's just this really genuine, authentic place to have conversations with like-minded people and not even just like-minded, new people to actually expand your own view on things in the world, especially around business. So we have only a couple of minutes left here. So Simi, I did want to ask you this. You talked about the past. You talked about the present. Sounds like you love your role right now, so I don't mean to put you in an awkward position to say you want to leave that position. But now that you see opportunities expanding, and you're still very young, a lot younger than me, don't have any of this in here like I have. So where do you see opportunities for yourself and for others, perhaps? Well, let's focus on you. Maybe in the next 5, 10, 20 years, where you would perhaps like to see yourself in sports business in a leadership space? What gets you excited that you'd like to explore?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say that every month there's always something new, something to look forward to, whether it's in terms of just partnerships, new signings, or just seeing new players being transferred to new teams. There's always something to keep me on my toes. On a broader aspect, I would definitely say, for me personally, having FIFA come here in 2026 is something that childhood me never even dreamed of. So that is definitely exciting, especially with Canada men's soccer team and our women's team as well, doing extremely well in the current national standings, breaking records and whatnot, and really putting Canada on the map in terms of soccer and youth development. So that really excites me. Just to bring it forward and closer to now, it's definitely hoping that our men's national team, fingers crossed, is going to do really well in the 2022 World Cup, and hopefully having an avenue or an opportunity to help support them or participate in any capacity at the end of this year. And honestly, it's just seeing how I feel like in terms of soccer in Canada right now, we're sort of at like we're just starting to compete. We're just starting to build. We're just starting to, have money being invested into this whole industry. So I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future. And just seeing all the new young talent that's around right now. A lot of the kids in the academy that I'm working with now, I know without a doubt that they'll be participating in 2026 in the World Cup. So just excited to see them in that. And honestly, just to keep learning. Every day there's something brand new that I learned in the industry, whether it's in TFC and MLSE, or just as a whole. There's just so much that I don't know, and which is okay, which is fine, which actually excites me because it shows me that I've still got a lot to do and a long way to go in terms of growing, and that really excites me in terms of the future.
No, I love that mindset you have there. You're constantly curious, always learning, and that's just so important. And I'm involved quite heavily in the entrepreneurial space, but even with your career, very similar. It's never a straight line. It's more like this. There's ups and downs and snakes and ladders, and sometimes you have to pause or be patient, which I can tell with both of you, you're high performance people. So to stay still and probably is really hard and almost counterintuitive at sometimes. But sometimes we do need to take that deep breath, and then when opportunities present themselves, to really push it forward. So I love the that growth mindset and that mindset of curiosity that you both possess. So we do have to wrap up here. I'm going to give Marsha last word to wrap up here, and if she wanted to provide any parting words. Before that, I'll say a few things. If anybody watching here wants to learn more or be part of or listen to or watch the over 30 amazing women I've had and counting on the Mod Golf podcast, the simplest way you can find us is www.mod.golf, and you'll find it all there. Part of celebrating Women's History Month here in March, we're going to be showcasing almost on a daily basis the amazing women that we've had on previously and the ones that we're going to have on in the next little while. So thank you very much for letting me be part of this today. I'm honored to be asked to participate in this. So with that, Marsha, why don't you unmute and say a few last words, what you'd like to say to our audience today.
Well, thank you for having me, first and foremost, and thank you for sharing the stage with me, Simi. It's always a pleasure to see you and to be a part of anything where you are. I just think that as women, we have so much to be proud of, and the fact that we have reached this far and we haven't really tapped our full potential yet is something to look forward to. So I just encourage all the women who I know and who I don't know to continue pushing and trying to push those boundaries, because we really don't know what we can do till we do it.
With that, I guess we'll drop that mic, because you said that so well. It was a pleasure meeting you both today, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. So why don't we hand it back over to everybody else here to finish up with our program here today.